Revenge with Karen. Lisa knew something was off when the HR director, Janice with the cardigan, showed up to a Friday touch base with a manila folder and the emotional depth of a teaspoon. The room smelled like printer toner and impending doom. Her boss, Greg, the human embodiment of lukewarm coffee, refused to look her in the eye. He just kept tapping his stupid Montblanc pen like it might rewrite the outcome. "We're restructuring," Janice began. She was reading off a cue card held by Satan himself. "Your role has been identified as redundant in light of operational efficiency optimization." Redundant, like a broken printer, like expired milk, like someone who had spent 6 years building client relationships from scratch, staying late to reformat decks Greg would slap his name on, coaching interns who thought pivot table was a yoga pose. Lisa didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stared at the memo for 5 full seconds, nodded once, and stood up. "Noted," she said. Janice blinked. "Would you like to speak to someone in transitional counseling?" "I'd rather floss with barbed wire," Lisa replied, calm as ice in a martini glass. She walked out without touching the WeCast severance package. 2 weeks for 6 years. That was less than a day per 100 emails sent on Greg's behalf. Less than a penny per spreadsheet she rescued. She didn't slam the door. No need. The echo of their mistake would follow them. And hey, while I have your attention, real quick, 97% of folks who enjoy stories like this don't subscribe. Wild, right? So if you're into underdog revenge, corporate karma, and a healthy dose of poetic justice, hit that subscribe button and like the video. It really fuels the team to keep digging up these gems. Appreciate you. Back to Lisa. Elevator ride down felt like a scene from a courtroom drama. She wasn't walking out broken, she was walking out loaded. Not with rage, with receipts, with memory, with the kind of silent inventory that turns pain into plans. At the ground floor, the security guard looked up. "Hey Lisa, heading out early?" Just in time, she smiled. "Apparently I'm too expensive to be efficient." He laughed, not knowing it was her last day. That Monday, gave her desk to a junior analyst named Wyatt, who thought KPI stood for Keep People Interested. Lisa sat at home that night not with wine and tissues, but with her laptop and a Google Sheet labeled the list. At the top, Grayson Dynamics, the crown jewel client she had handled like a goddamn Fabergé egg. She onboarded them, coddled them, made sure their invoices never bounced, and even attended their CFO's retirement Zoom like it mattered. And now, it was deleted. Her LinkedIn headline changed by morning, available for strategic consulting. She didn't sleep. She didn't binge Netflix. She rewrote her resume from the bones up, built a Notion portfolio that could cut glass, and sent out exactly 3 tailored messages before sunrise. Lisa wasn't just jobless. She was a free agent, and free agents, they don't beg for chances. They make the game regret cutting them. 3 days after Lisa's last sanitized walk through the lobby, her phone buzzed at 7:42 a.m. Subject line, quick cue, smiling face with smiling eyes from her own goddamn email address. She opened it and there it was. "Hey Lisa, trying to get into the Grayson portal, but it's asking for MFA and I don't have the code. Any idea how to reset that? Wyatt. The human Red Bull who once asked her if net 30 was some kind of phishing term, now sitting in her chair, using her nameplate. And oh, the poetic justice, desperately fumbling in a portal, she personally secured with 3 levels of authentication and a backup phrase in Latin. Lisa didn't reply. She just sat back, sipping burnt coffee out of a mug that said "I survived another meeting that should have been an email," and smiled like a cat watching a mouse try to start a lawnmower. By Friday, he'd already gotten wind of a Grayson onboarding doc that was sent to the wrong division. Someone used Comic Sans. The sales VP emailed a deck that still had Lisa's notes delete before sending in the speaker's notes. The kicker, her old department's weekly client call with Grayson Dynamics was rescheduled 4 times because no one knew how to generate the dashboard. She watched the collapse from afar, equal parts bitter and vindicated. It was like watching someone try to deep fry a salad. Messy, pointless, and kind of beautiful if you were petty enough, which, surprise, she was. Still, unemployment didn't pay the bills. So Lisa took what she called tactical gigs, 2-week stints helping small businesses do what her old firm used to charge triple for and still botch. One was a local vet's office drowning in paper records. She digitized their whole system in 6 days, set up auto reminders for pet checkups, and even taught the receptionist how to schedule emails so she could stop crying at 6 p.m. every day. Another was a boutique bakery trying to scale. Lisa built a workflow in Airtable that saved them 4 hours a day. They paid her in cash and cupcakes. Not ideal, but hell, cupcakes didn't condescend during performance reviews. Each gig stitched something back into her. It spent 6 years tying her identity to a company that tossed her like expired toner. Now, these tiny wins felt like resurrection. Like she was sharpening a blade she didn't know she still had. She worked from her kitchen table, sometimes in pajamas, sometimes with rage-fueled eyeliner, but always with precision. Clients didn't care about her resume format. They cared that she could fix what no one else saw was broken. Meanwhile, Greg posted a LinkedIn update, excited to announce our department is leaner, meaner, and ready for Q3. Lisa read it while unclogging a florist's back-end CRM system that had looped into a Russian phishing site. She chuckled, copied the URL, and wondered if she should forward it to Greg. She didn't, yet, but the seeds were there. The calls were starting. The whispers were getting louder. And in 1 week, recruiter would call her about a consulting role that would make everything, snap into place like a loaded mousetrap. The recruiter's voice was smooth, corporate, and just vague enough to be dangerous. Lisa, I've got a short-term strategic contract, 3-month engagement, high visibility. Interested? She was mid-bite into a cold grocery store burrito, still half livid over a typo in a florist's email blast she just fixed for free. Who's the client? She mumbled, Grayson Dynamics. Silence. You could have heard her self-control snap like a stale breadstick. Grayson, her Grayson. The account she birthed, bottle-fed, and babysat for 6 damn years. The same Grayson her ex-firm had proudly declared locked in because, quote, Lisa basically runs it in her sleep. Now they were calling for Band-Aid. She almost said no. She almost told the recruiter to shove it where the synergy don't shine. Then she pictured Wyatt in a meeting, sweating through a blazer from TJ Maxx, trying to explain why client onboarding was delayed because Lisa didn't leave instructions. Send me the details, she said. 2 days later, she walked into Grayson HQ with a thumb drive, a tailored navy blazer, and the kind of icy calm that said, I don't forget who threw me overboard. The interviewer, Darla friggin' Baines. Lisa clocked her instantly. Director of Internal Strategy, Grayson's new golden girl, and the same woman who once sat 3 cubicles down and had literally stolen Lisa's Q2 trend analysis report, slapped her name on it, and presented it at a town hall. Lisa. Wow, full circle, huh? Darla chirped, fake as Splenda in a shot of whiskey. Yeah, Lisa smiled. Only now I invoice per hour. The interview was a joke. Darla fumbled through vague questions like she was trying to remember why Lisa was even there. But the second they brought in the real execs, 2 VPs, and the CFO, Lisa switched gears. She didn't pitch. She dissected. Your vendor onboarding is redundant across departments. Billing flags show vendor inflation that hasn't been audited since Q4 last year. You've got KPI blind spots in fulfillment that will break you by holiday season. She didn't even open her laptop. She quoted their own performance reviews from memory. 30 minutes in, the CFO leaned back, blinked, and said, Why haven't we worked with you before? Lisa just sipped her lukewarm water like it was champagne. By the time she left, Darla looked pale and distant, like someone just told her job had a countdown. Lisa didn't celebrate. She didn't text anyone. She went home, fed her sourdough starter, updated her calendar. Grayson onboarding Monday. She stared at the line, a foot back in the building, but not as a peon, not as Greg's errand girl. This time, she was the one holding the flashlight in the cave, and she was about to find out just how broken the system really was, and who had been benefiting from keeping it that way. Lisa's first day back in Grayson wasn't exactly triumphant. It was beige walls, stale coffee, and a loaner badge that spelled her name Lisa. She smiled anyway, because this wasn't a job, it was a microscope, and she was aiming it straight at the rotting guts of her old firm's work. By the end of week 1, Lisa had flagged 3 vendor redundancies, 2 wildly padded invoices, and a consulting retainer so vague it might as well have said magic beans. All of it tied to her former employer, still billing Grayson like Lisa hadn't ever left the room. She didn't make noise. She didn't snitch. She just started cleaning. She rewrote workflows that had been bloated with nonsense jargon, like synergistic deliverables and proactive alignment. She killed 14 PowerPoint slides from one proposal and replaced them with a 3-cell table and a red flag. One internal tool Grayson had been using, ironically called FlowPro, had been so broken it routed requests in circles. Lisa rebuilt the system in 3 days using basic SharePoint logic and an actual process map, not whatever spaghetti diagram the last solutions architect had puked out. By week 2, one of the marketing directors dropped by her cubicle with a blueberry muffin and said, "Hey, just so you know, that new intake form. Brilliant. We've already seen a 12% drop in bounce backs." Lisa smiled and said thank you. Inside, her spine straightened another inch. End of the month, she was running daily touchpoints with finance, operations, and procurement. What started as a trial contract turned into an interdepartmental whisper network. Lisa fixed our invoicing issues in 1 week. Ask Lisa before you escalate. Lisa spotted that bug that compliance missed. Even Darla, once smug queen of strategic vision, started copying her on emails with lines like looping in Lisa for clarity. Clarity. That was a new one. She never acted smug, never flexed. But she noticed the way people stood straighter when she entered meetings, how her questions carried weight, how her name started landing in internal memos. One Thursday, the head of procurement leaned over during a coffee break and said, "Hey, just between us, you ever think of sticking around long term?" She laughed. "Just here to clean the windows." But inside, she was already looking through the glass, already seeing the cracks in the foundation. Cracks her old firm had been painting over with corporate lipstick. And the deeper she went, the more she realized this wasn't just bad project management. This was a pattern, a calculated bleed, and someone, maybe someone's, was getting rich off of keeping Grayson inefficient. Lisa wasn't just rebuilding her confidence. She was starting to understand something far bigger. And the higher she climbed in trust, the sharper her vantage point became. The offer came on a Wednesday, slid across the table in a matte folder by a man named Ken who wore cufflinks shaped like tiny airplanes. "We'd like you to stay," he said. "Senior operations liaison, full benefits, stock options, your own team if you want it." Lisa didn't flinch, didn't blink, just said, "I'll need a few hours to think." Then walked out, sat in her car, and laughed so hard she scared the guy in the next parking space. 6 months ago, they called her redundant. Now, Race and Dynamics, the same client her old firm thought they'd locked up forever, was offering her a title with the word senior in it and a starting salary that made Greg's last performance review look like Monopoly money. She took the job, quietly, without a LinkedIn post or a celebratory brunch. She just showed up Monday morning with a badge that spelled her name correctly this time, a new office with a window, and a seat at the weekly cross-functional review table. A table, it had teeth. Every department, compliance, legal, vendor management, procurement, came to that table to pitch, to justify, to beg. Lisa didn't speak much at first. She asked questions, took notes. But when the vendor audits hit her desk, she noticed something, her old firm's name, bolded, top of the list, coming up for renewal. Their file was a mess. Overbilled hours, vague deliverables, inflated line items labeled Consultation Addendum A. Lisa highlighted, annotated, and flagged inconsistencies that no one else had the context to see because she built the original agreements. Her initials were still on half the original onboarding docs. One morning, a junior ops analyst asked, "Hey Lisa, weren't you at Melrose and Price?" She looked up from her screen, calm, briefly. He laughed. "Weird, you're all over the notes on their file." The thrill hit her like a slow exhale. Her name, still echoing in documents they assumed she'd never see again. And now she was the one deciding their fate. Emails started landing with her name in the CC, ones addressed to VPs and directors. People started opening meetings by saying, "Lisa, do you want to kick this off?" Even Darla had shifted, now bordering on submissive, sending over her weekly reports with the subject line, "For your insights, appreciate any feedback." It was subtle, but steady. The shift, from outsider to axis. Then came the meeting invite, subject, Q4 vendor contract review session mandatory attendees, legal, procurement, vendor strategy, and Lisa Alvarez no title, no explanation, just her name. But she knew exactly what it meant. They were putting her in the room for that conversation. The one where her old firm's future would be discussed, weighed, and potentially ended. Greg wouldn't know yet, but her signature was about to matter more than his job ever had. Lisa didn't need to declare war. She just started pulling threads, quietly. A missed deliverable logged 3 weeks late. An invoice marked rush hours for a project that never had a deadline. A billing cycle that mysteriously included 4 strategy sessions Lisa knew for a fact were canceled. Every red flag went into a folder titled M&P Reconciliation. She didn't announce it, even password protected. She just kept feeding it, like a quiet bonfire that would burn through reputations when the wind shifted. Her days were calm, clinical. But inside, her brain ran like a switchblade. She combed vendor performance dashboards until her eyes blurred, cross-referencing Slack transcripts, change logs, and even timestamps on email attachments. The more she dug, the more she saw a pattern. Her former employer had never replaced her, just divided her job into pieces, assigned them to clueless juniors, and billed triple the hours for half the output. And then, divine comedy struck. She's mid-review of a quarterly audit spreadsheet when a ping hits her inbox, from Wyatt Jenkins at Melrose Price Com to Lisa Alvarez at Grayson Corpcom subject. Quick favor, hey Lisa. Hope you're well, sorry to bother, but do you remember how to access the legacy dashboard for Q2 fulfillment logs? Getting some questions from Grayson's procurement team and kinda scrambling here. Any chance you can point us in the right direction? CC her, not BCC, not internal. Just Wyatt, desperate, dumb, and digitally exposed. Lisa stared at it for a long moment. No anger, no glee, just cold, collected calculation. She opened a new window. Forwarded the email to Grayson Compliance with one line, potential breach of vendor continuity protocol, recommending performance review. No signature, no smiley, just facts. Then she archived Wyatt's email. Later that afternoon, she dropped 3 more inconsistencies into her folder, a project billed twice under separate line items, a presentation template that hadn't been updated since she built it, still watermarked with her name, a custom analysis report copied word for word from a doc she once sent as a draft. The fire was catching. That week, Compliance emailed her back. Thanks for flag. Looping in vendor strategy. Please prepare any relevant materials ahead of the Q4 session. No questions, no pushback, just green lights. Lisa didn't gloat. She just poured herself a glass of water, closed her laptop for the night, and let herself breathe for the first time in weeks. She wasn't just reviewing a contract. She was building a case. And Greg, Wyatt, all of them, didn't even know they were already under cross-examination. By the time that Q4 session hit, she wouldn't just be the most prepared person in the room. She'd be holding every receipt, every inconsistency, and the quiet authority of someone who'd been cut out and came back with a scalpel. The proposal landed with the kind of drama only marketing consultants and desperate vendors can deliver: PDF deck, full bleed visuals, animated logo on the cover page, title, Next Gen Synergies, Unlocking the Future Together. Lisa had to stop herself from snorting. It was 47 pages of corporate word salad. Holistic pipeline maximization, dynamic solution integration, value cascade via omnivertical disruption. Somewhere around page 14, they used the phrase quantum operations framework with no irony and absolutely no math. Lisa didn't speak during the initial read-through. She just underlined, annotated, highlighted phrases like she was grading a freshman essay written entirely by ChatGPT on an Adderall bender. The internal review team gathered in conference room D. Procurement, legal, strategy, and the intern who still thought she was someone's executive assistant. Darla opened with her usual overcompensating optimism. Well, they're clearly putting forward a bold vision. Thoughts? Lisa clicked to slide 3. Visions fine. Executions fictional. Few raised brows. She continued, cool and methodical. This projected timeline doesn't account for vendor onboarding delays. Grayson's internal SLA requires 10 business days, not 5. Click. This custom workflow diagram is a stock layout from Figma. It's identical to what they pitched our competitor last quarter. Different colors, same architecture. Click. This cost breakdown includes a line item for strategic inspiration sessions. That's not a deliverable. That's a TED talk. The intern coughed into her sleeve, trying not to laugh. Lisa kept going, dismantling the deck with surgical calm. Every bloated buzzword, cut. Every duplicated bullet point, flagged. Every innovative solution she personally invented 5 years ago while working at that firm, exposed. No one knew, not yet. And then it happened. Procurement Director Nina, who'd been chewing her pen like it owed her money, smirked and said, "Damn, Lisa, sure you didn't write this playbook?" A few chuckles. Someone else muttered, "She's got him on speedrun mode." Lisa leaned back just slightly, not smug, not arrogant, just settled. "Let's just say I'm familiar with the architecture." Darla blinked too fast. Nina's smirk widened. No one pressed further. But the air changed. For the first time, Lisa wasn't just the efficient contractor. She was the oracle, the insider, one who saw through the fog and could name every ghost hiding in the proposal's margins. By the end of the hour, the conclusion was unanimous. The deck looked good, but it didn't mean anything. Pretty isn't persuasive. Darla tried to salvage it. We could ask for revisions, no, Lisa said, calm and final. We ask for integrity. If they can't lead with that, there's nothing left to fix. Silence. Agreement. Lisa didn't stay for the post-meeting banter. She gathered her notes, nodded once, and walked out. Behind her, Nina whispered, "Remind me never to get on her bad side." Lisa smiled to herself just slightly. They still didn't fully understand. She wasn't on the warpath, she was on cleanup duty. And the real hit, it was scheduled for next week, when she'd be sitting across from Greg face to face, not as his employee, but as the one deciding whether he kept his lifeline. The meeting wasn't dramatic. No raised voices, no whiteboard battles, just 5 department heads, one agenda, and a ticking clock. Darla tried one last Hail Mary. "I still think Melrose and Price brings legacy value. They know our structure. We've worked with them for years." Lisa didn't flinch. She just tapped the spreadsheet open on the shared screen. Legacy value doesn't justify inflated billing, misaligned timelines, and copy-pasted solutions. Legal chimed in, contractually, missed 4 KPIs in 2 quarters. Procurement added, their proposal is fluff. We'd be laughed out of the next board review if we greenlit this. One by one, heads nodded. Then came the vote. Unanimous. Proposal rejected. Lisa didn't gloat. She just opened a fresh email draft and began typing the formal rejection notice, her fingers surgical on the keyboard. "Dear Vendor Relations Team at Melrose and Price, after thorough review, we have concluded that your submitted proposal does not meet Grayson Dynamics operational or financial standards. For Q4 contract renewal, each sentence was polished and precise. No venom, no snark, just bulletproof professionalism with a blade tucked between the lines." When she scrolled to the signature block, she saw it. Vendor contact. Karen Whitmore, Director, Client Accounts Melrose and Price. Karen. Same Karen who read her severance memo like she was ordering lunch. Who avoided eye contact and said, "This is just a formality, nothing personal." The one who handed Lisa her walking papers and reminded her to return her badge. Lisa paused, just for a moment, let it sink in. Now she was writing the memo, and Karen would be the one reading it. She clicked send. No hesitation. Then opened her calendar and added a 12:30 lunch with Apex Strategy Group, Melrose and Price's closest competitor, the one who'd been circling like sharks ever since the cracks started showing. She packed her laptop, stood up, and walked out of the room. As she passed Darla's desk, the woman looked up, offered a hesitant nod. Lisa returned it with a polite smile. Polite, but not warm. The tide hadn't just turned. It had swallowed the beach. And Lisa? She was already scouting better views from the next shore. Meeting invite hit her inbox at 7:13 a.m. sharp. Subject: Vendor follow-up Melrose and Price optional attendees. Strategy, legal, ops, and Lisa Alvarez. Optional, cute. She didn't click yes, she just showed up. The conference room smelled like nerves and cheap cologne by the time she walked in. The windows caught the morning glare, casting sharp rectangles of sunlight across the glossy table. And there he was. Greg. Same khaki slacks, same oversized blazer. Same desperate glint beneath the salesman's smile he always thought looked charming. He stood when he saw her, face draining a full shade. "Lisa, wow. I wasn't expecting." She sat down across from him, dropped her notebook on the table, and offered a smile that could slice through drywall. "Let's begin." Greg stumbled through his pitch. Something about reaffirming the historical value of the partnership and streamlining next-gen operational touchpoints. Even used the phrase mutual legacy optimization, which sounded like he was pitching a cemetery plot. She didn't interrupt, didn't smirk. She just watched, listened, took in the flop sweat building at his collar. The way he glanced at her hands, like maybe he was hoping she'd take pity, offer a lifeline. As if she didn't remember every late night he dumped work on her desk with a "you're better at detail stuff." As if she forgot being called redundant by a man who couldn't spell redundant. He finished with a weak smile. "We'd love to find a way forward." Lisa closed her notebook, leaned in, calm, clear. "We're going in another direction." Silence. The kind that rings. Greg blinked. Look, if there's anything I can do to," she stood. "You already did," and walked out. Down the corridor, past the glass offices and half-familiar faces that used to look through her like she was part of the furniture. She hit the lobby just as her phone buzzed. Incoming call. Maya Rhodes, CEO Apex Strategy, she answered on the second ring. Lisa Alvarez. A pause, then a laugh on the other end. Perfect timing. We just finalized the onboarding package. Welcome aboard. Lisa pushed through the revolving door into the sunlight. She didn't look back. Not once. Greg was probably still upstairs, stewing in that conference room, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. The answer was easy. The day they cut her loose, they didn't just lose an employee, they created a weapon. And today, it finally landed. There's something chilling about someone weaponizing silence. Lisa didn't slam doors or write bitter Glassdoor reviews. She rebuilt her power from the shadows and let competence do the killing. In corporate America, that kind of quiet vengeance speaks louder than any outburst. Sometimes, the most ruthless thing you can do is succeed without them. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.